Our next guest is here for her first visit on this show. She is probably one of the most intense, outspoken, perhaps one of the most intellectual voices in America today. Her books, The Fountainhead, which was made into a motion picture, and Atlas Shrugged, have sold millions of copies. And some people say that her objectivist newsletter is one of the more vital publications in the world today. This is her new book called Capitalism, The Unknown Ideal. I think you will find her most unusual and most controversial. Would you welcome, please, Miss Ayn Rand. It's indeed a pleasure to have you with us tonight.
I'm delighted to be here.
I know that you probably don't appear on many shows of this nature. It's kind of a crazy entertainment show generally, although we do like to sit down occasionally and get some views of people that are important in the world today.
Well, I don't disapprove of entertainment. In fact, I've been watching you many times.
I'm very, very happy. We'll talk about this later on. I know it's very difficult to state any philosophical principles like objectivism in a short period of time or to condense it. But
Quite.
Can you give us some basic idea of objectivism and the principles of philosophy that you believe in?
All right, now I'll make it very brief with the understanding that anyone who really is interested would look it up in my books, particularly in Atlas Shrugged, because otherwise I can't give a long discourse and proof here. So just as mentioning the highlights, the basic principle of objectivism is that man must be guided exclusively by reason. Reason is the faculty that identifies and integrates the material provided by his senses. That's a formal definition. That reason is man's only tool of knowledge, his only guide to action, and his only guide to the choice of values. As a consequence of that, man's proper ethics, or morality, is a morality of rational self-interest, which means that every man has a right to exist for his own sake, and he must not sacrifice himself to others or sacrifice others to himself. That the achievement of his own rational happiness is the highest moral purpose of his life. As a consequence of that, the only system, the only political system which expresses this morality is the system of laissez-faire capitalism, by which I mean full, unregulated, uncontrolled capitalism, a system based on the recognition of individual rights, including property rights, in which all property is owned by private individuals. The principle which ties morality to politics is the principle that no man has the right to initiate physical force, violence, compulsion against other men. Men have certainly the right of self-defense, but no man, no group of men, that includes the government, has the right to initiate force and to force a man to act against his own judgment. Now, this is the essence of the philosophy, but if you want me to illustrate what it means that very beautiful song which we just heard, which was sung magnificently, only in reverse. It means that man, if he chooses his ideals rationally, can and must achieve them. Here on earth, in reality, that there are no unreachable heights for men, there are no unrightable goals, wrongs. In other words, I approve enormously of that which makes people like the song, but I don't approve of its content. I say man can be happy, can achieve the ideal here and on earth.
Things with Ms. Rand tonight. Your objectivism is, in a way, of course, why there's so much controversy, is that it is almost contrary to, I guess, the cultural beliefs as people have been brought up, true, as to sacrifice the good of your fellow men and not to have the self-egoism and self-sacrifice, as you call it.
Not almost contrary, the exact opposite.
And you're saying that man should first serve his own self-interests and be interested in himself first.
I wouldn't say first. I would say only. But you will have to explain this. Other men can be of interest to an individual if they represent values, moral values. You serve your own interest best by finding, associating with, working with the right kind of people. Therefore, other people can be a value, a great value to a man, but only when and if they correspond to his moral ideas, not otherwise. In other words, man does not have to serve anyone except himself, but he does, in effect, serve others when their interests and their values agree.
Now, you said serve yourself. I think you said that you discuss values quite frequently, and why men need values and how they get their values. Because you say man comes into the world without any preset notion of values or concepts and learns. Why is it that we were discussing youngsters this afternoon, that you find very young children who are by nature selfish? Young children are completely self-oriented. Now, do they learn that, or is that something that is inherent in the very young, that they are completely self-oriented?
Well, I think that's inherent in everything that's living. It's inherent in any living entity, an entity which was not concerned with itself, or, to put it better, an entity that did not value itself would not exist for very long. But now, children are below the understanding of the issues. They, in effect, do not yet have a choice. It is when children begin to speak, when they begin to acquire ideas, that their choice begins. And the idea of self-sacrifice is a totally artificial, very evil idea which children and adults learn from others, which is passed from person to person. Now, it doesn't mean that if a child were left alone, he would naturally be selfish properly. No, because it is an enormous achievement to discover rational selfishness, not acting on the whim or pleasure of the moment, but knowing what is rationally an important goal, of what value is it to you, and how to achieve it. The idea of being rationally selfish is not available to children. It would take a long period of thought or the proper teaching for them to discover it.
You say man is an end to himself. You say A is A and existence is existence, and we are here as an end to itself. Why is it that man throughout, I guess, at least recorded history, seems to need something else, a belief, which you do not believe in, I assume, do not believe in the existence of a supreme being or God or creator or whatever
no, I do not.
You want to label it. Why has man then seemed to need that ever since man has been on earth? Is it to rationalize his existence here?
I wouldn't call it a need. I would say he has resorted to it by default, because all the content of man's consciousness he has to acquire. He has to acquire by thought, by knowledge. He has to discover it by default of a proper understanding of life, which means of a proper philosophy of life. Men resort to blind faith. It is a phenomenon of default. Men have not yet progressed out of it.
You don't think it serves a need for many people?
You
say it's a need, but you say it's the wrong, because it's a wrong need, is that it?
It's a need that fills a vacuum in the sense that the actual need is for a conscious philosophy of life. Man is a conceptual being. He can't exist range of the moment. He needs a larger view, a long-range plan. By default of proper rational principles, he falls on religion, because that is all that is offered to him. So that I regard religion as the infancy of mankind. It is the pre-philosophical stage, and a great many people are still in their infancy.
You have many lectures at the colleges.
Oh, yes.
Do you find the feeling, that type of a feeling, away from religion per se, and more in your, if you say, completely rational reasoning, without faith?
I've never attempted to take a poll of those issues, but
I just wonder what they asked you and what they discussed with you.
Oh, yes. Here's what I find, that young people, particularly in colleges, are enormously anxious to find rational answers. This is not to say that they will all necessarily always be rational, but they need the quest for understanding, for an integrated, consistent view of life is there enormously and tragically. If you begin to speak to them about faith or religion or any form of mysticism, most of them will not listen with great interest.
When you talk about morality and setting a sense of values, does each individual set his own standard of morality? Because one person's morality affects those around him, does it not?
No.
It does not.
It affects it all right. No, but to say that each person sets his own standard would simply mean subjectivism. No, what sets the standards is the science of ethics. That is a branch of philosophy. Its particular task is to define moral standards. Then it is up to each individual to decide what he agrees with, which standards he considers right, if he thinks, which standards he considers rational. Now, an individual may discover a new set of standards, but it is not subjective. It is not just up to him. If he discovers such a subjective code, this is not really morality. It's not ethics. That's just what we call whim worship.
You think it's immoral, if that's the right word, for somebody who is not productive or to not produce to capacity?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Well, suppose somebody doesn't want to, say, work. Maybe his self-interest is served by not producing or working to capacity.
Oh, wait a moment. Now, if you're asking me, should every man be productive? Yes. And that is not...
To the limits of his ability.
Yes, but it doesn't mean that he should work himself to death. But he may have other interests in his life, too. But as his primary goal, if you mean should every man's first value, top goal, should it be productive work on any level of ability? I would say yes, certainly. And if a man does not want to be productive, he is immoral.
Do you think the word you used was an emotional parasite?
If he places other people above his own productive career, his own creative mind, then he's an emotional parasite.
Do you emotionally get attached to people, friendships, close friendships?
Oh, yes.
But you don't place their interests above what you do?
There's never any clash, because I would be friendly only with rational people, and among rational people, there's no clash.
We'll be right back. Back with Ayn Rand now. Ed, did you say you wished to ask something?
I was just wondering, in our culture, it seems that everything springs from the family relationship. The little tiny individual groups of husband, wife, child, or whatever. How does that grouping fit in with your philosophy? In other words, how do you share?
Optionally. Optionally. I don't think that the family is the necessary unit of society, but I think it's precisely independent individuals that would make the best husbands and wives. If they share the same values, the same interests, they would form the proper kind of unions. It would be the lasting unions. But I would never maintain that a family is an obligation on the individual. If a man cares to marry, that is fine, or a woman. If not, it's fine also, provided they have rational reasons for their choice.